church in Boscombe. I thought I would just go live because I fancied it and it was a beautiful day. So here we are. We're in between a place called Boscombe near Bournemouth. Well, it's a borough of Bournemouth and also another borough of Bournemouth called Springbourne. Yeah, and basically I just wanted to take a little look at a couple of buildings that are situated about a 10-minute walk from where I live, about a 10-15-minute walk away from some of the other buildings I've looked at in the past, either on my own or with Mike, for example. So when we're talking buildings like the Corpus Christi Church or the Folkestone Foundation, and all that sort of stuff, there seem to be a lot of these churches and buildings dotted around this area of Boscombe and Springbourne and all the rest of it. And it's basically a work in progress because, I started doing this a few months ago with Elim on a channel called the Where It's At channel. Unfortunately, a few things got in the way, as they do in life. So we have to sort of put that on hold a little bit, but it hasn't prevented me from continuing to look at these buildings because the more you are aware of them, the more they stand out. So, but just a quick hello to No Comment. I'm in Boscombe, mate, just outside Bournemouth. Tony Dixon, hello, mate, nice to see you. And Crystal Sharman, hello to you, my dear, nice to see you too. Yes, by the way, the props in the background, those white stripes, I'm not going to say what they are because I'll get accused of being a conspiracy theorist. So I'll let other people decide for themselves whether they think they are natural bits of vapor that hang out at the back of aeroplanes or whether they're made to linger and last in our skies. I won't suggest I have the answers. Mainstream suggests they do. I beg to differ. But then what do I know? And those of us who think the same way as I do. Yeah. So there we have it. So on a beautiful day, you have things like that. I can count from where I'm sat now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And a couple in the background. So at least 7 that I can count there. And if I look in between those thick clouds there, you can see a smaller aeroplane flying, and of course the vapor trail behind that disappears as it should do when you're seeing vapor trails. Anyway, this video isn't about condensed trails and all the rest of it. We all know that there's a lot of skullduggery going on. Anyway, right, so I thought I'd have a little look around here. This building here is called Elim Church. Yes. And, we have, for quite a while now, come to the conclusion that these buildings were not built originally as places of worship. There are many reasons why we come to that conclusion. Not because we can, look back in time in a time machine and see exactly people we're getting up to, but because we can use our discernment. We can look at when bricks were manufactured. We can look at, for example, how many people lived in certain regions, populations, that sort of thing. Because, of course, all these town halls and everything, they have these so-called official stats going back 100, 150 years. Like those stats when they say since records began, when they tell you about how the planet is about to blow up, those stats. So what we do is we use that information against them, and we say, well, if that's the case, then this, and this doesn't add up, which clearly means somebody's fudging it. Anyway, so we have here a nice specimen because it gives us those examples that Trinity 4 and myself often point out when we're going around doing this together. And that is add-ons are one of the first things you tend to see. So here we have clearly to the left of this building here, the main bulk of the church, we have this added on, which is fair enough. But one thing I found out immediately or saw straight away is when you take a look at this, you can see where they've kind of drawn a line, as it were, with the concrete or the cement or whatever it is there, and you have then the layer below that that goes below the tarmac. Don't forget, the tarmac that I'm stood on, that will be quite a few inches thick, because you'll have tarmac, then you'll have what they call like shotter and stonage and all that below that, and then you'll have dirt below that. So it's a good few inches thick before you start laying tarmac right on the top. How do I know that? Because I used to do it. Anyway, and of course you have a lot of these in this church that I've noticed, and they are basically headstones built into the side of churches. So 1909 is a date given there, for example. Hey Jennifer, good to see you too. I can't express as many love hearts as what you printed there on the screen, but consider it reciprocated. So anyway, carrying on with this, so you have this here, you have a cut-off point there. Notice the difference between the bricks below it and the bricks above it. Exactly what we talk about when we talk about the cladding, right? There was that example in Boscombe where the circular sections of the cement formed, one of them had come off. This is a couple of videos ago that I did. And of course behind it, the bricks are a little bit grayish, but when you scrape it away, you can see the red brick, right? So here, for example, that's because that's been covered up. So we take a walk around here. Here we have it better to see here. There's your differences. You've got the cladding that goes to ground level for your eyes to see, and then below that, the original building continues. Okay, and here you see the ground level going up. And so it goes on all around this building. So a lot of this ground, of course, everywhere you look is uneven. They've made it as even as possible, but it kind of exposes it nicely. Again, just to add to the historical kind of, you know, backstory of the building. They'll have things like, I don't know, kind of commemorative plaques put into the side of the wall. As you can see when you look at the building, we have the same sort of features. So we have the windows set in the building a little bit, and you have the cladding about, I don't know, I would say that's about 4 inches worth, 4 inches thick roughly. Of course you can't see in these windows because they are frosted windows, but I would imagine that the wall on the inside of that building within that window is probably just as thick, if not thicker, than the bit of brick that you can see sticking outside of the building. So in other words, it's not flush, it's definitely been added to, most definitely. So what we can say is that the so-called building work or construction that we're led to believe took place, let's say in the 1880s, 1890s, which seems to be always the popular time, even the beginning of the 1900s. I'm trying not to stumble over this wall here that I just climbed over. Is actually when the cladding was done, not when the actual whole building was erected, right? So that's an important point to make. So let's have a look down here. So we have, again, the continuation of the difference in bricks. You can see it clearly there. And you can see it clearly there as well. That's not a figment of anybody's imagination. You definitely have two things going on here. And that's exactly what's happened. They've been repurposed, refurbished, add-ons added over the years. Once the population has grown, then they can do that because you have a bigger pool of people to draw from, etc, etc, etc. And then of course you can start rolling out an extra control mechanism, which would be religion, on top of all the other control mechanisms. Right, keep going, mate. Yeah, good, man, thank you. You? All good, man. And here, right next to it, we have this shaft. As you can see on the side there, behind the greenery, you have the bricks on the right, and then below it you have what look like breeze blocks underneath the bricks, and underneath these bricks here you have clearly metal girders and stanchioning, cross beams, whatever you want to call them. I think my connection just went there for a second. Do apologise. Must be the spin of the earth again. Maybe a new album. So there we go. You know, yeah, you're absolutely right. Hi to you, by the way, mate. I didn't see you saying hello there. But yeah, why are the plaques so low to the ground? Well, usually they are at eye level. Well, yeah, you'd want them where you see them, wouldn't you? And that is a very good point as well, Crystal. Absolutely. Remember, we spoke recently about how when Paul and I spoke to a gentleman in Bath, where they have a lot of sort of below ground level flats and apartments with retaining walls to make it look like they built all those buildings purposely like that. And he said to us he always has problems in his basement flat. That's beautiful, because those buildings or those flats or apartments were never intended to be underground. They ended up underground, which is why people who live in them have issues. Walls with windows in them, you just wouldn't do that. You know, I think we're overemphasizing that point almost, because it's clear as day. Certain things are, you know, are no need to be debated really. But anyway, yeah. There you see it's gone up again. And of course there's newer asphalt here as well. That's gone up a level or two, an inch or so or whatever. And then you have here again the cladding, new windows obviously, but that'll go in a good few inches on the other side of that window. And of course the windows aren't original, clearly. And then right opposite you have the newer red brick buildings, that of course none of which have basements, interestingly enough. And when you talk to people who live in these old buildings, they'll tell you, no, we don't have basements. We spoke to somebody in Tadcaster yesterday, actually, which is where the John Smith's brewery is. And what happened there was that one of the people who lived there on the side of the street was telling us that she doesn't have a basement in her house. And we were like, well, that's interesting, because when you're walking down the road, you can clearly see that the buildings go deep into the ground. She was unaware of basements, so they've obviously just shut them down where she lives, you know. But there you go, there's your Elim church. I can't get inside because it's closed, but it doesn't matter, because we're going to go around to another one in a minute that's about 100 yards away. Right? But just look at this building. If I take a step back, and just as a reminder for those who do not know, I'll say it again. The mass production of bricks didn't happen before 1885. Did not happen. Right? You were not just knocking these up while the men were hunting and the women were, I don't know, plucking potatoes from the local field to keep the local sheriff happy, so that his men on horseback didn't come around interfering with your family once a week, right? Like they show you in the Robin Hood films and all that nonsense. No, that was not what was happening at all. Absolutely not. So, yeah, and you're right, Crystal, they've put gravel around the edges at ground level to help control the moisture in the lower part. Absolutely. To help soak it up, contain it, whatever. Totally right. You know, that is a big building. You know, like I said last time when I did the Corpus Christi one, if you took away all the surrounding houses where people live, you'd see these from miles away. You know. House of worship, really? Now, this area in the 1870s, Boscombe, had a population of barely 800 people. They will not all have been stonemasons. Right? They would not all have been stonemasons at all. Thank you, Tony, for that very important fact. Boscombe is spinning at 650 miles an hour, 659, sorry, miles per hour. Well, that's maybe why I'm feeling a bit lightheaded today, because I was a little bit further north, wasn't I, last week when you and I chatted. So yeah, acclimatization is really, we're underestimating it, my friend. You're right. Best wishes from Debbie also. Thank you, Barry, and best wishes back. Yeah, I thought I'd go live. I thought, well, I only had about half an hour's worth to record something, so I thought, nah, sod it, I'll go live, and then that way I can just have a few of you on the live chat. Hopefully some of you would see I was going live, which you have, which is good. Right, so I'm just going to walk down this road now, because we're going to go down to the other church, which is at the other end of a street called St. Mary's Street. I used to live here for a very brief while, actually. Very English, if you like, if you look at the houses. And what we'll do is when we get to the corner of the street, you'll see the next church. Now this is literally a space of about, I don't know, 200 yards maybe, nothing more than that. All right. Yeah, I had to get out and do a video because sitting around or just walking around thinking about the last 2 weeks wasn't going to do it. I had to sort of go out and just do something as well while it was on my mind, because we saw an amazing amount, a huge amount of old buildings in all the towns that we went to in the last 12 days or so. So in spite of 2 world wars and all the other efforts they've made to get rid of and conceal all the old buildings, we still have a hell of a lot dotted around this country. So it just goes to show what we used to have here. You know, we must have been surrounded, swamped by these things. We really must have been. And just think how easy it would have been to, in those days, compartmentalize communities and stuff, you know, have them segregated from each other. You know, again, we didn't have roads, we didn't have transport systems. Logistically speaking, it just wouldn't have been possible. Right, so here we've got the other one. No shortage of bricks on this one either, is there? This is called the Breath of Life Church, formerly known as St. Mary's Church. And, you know, just look at that. You alright? Good. Don't know what the hell he's looking at me for. They stare at you like you're doing something wrong. So, and here we have it again. We had the gravel that Crystal was talking about that they put on, probably for a functional reason, not just because it looks quite nice. This is the main road called Holdenhurst Road that takes you down to a motorway which eventually takes you to Southampton that way, in London, and that way is the town centre of Bournemouth right at the end of this road. You maybe see the big buildings and the crane in the distance, about a mile and a half away or something like that. But this is St. Mary's Road. And I'll go over the other side of the road so you can see it better. The other side of it. You know, let's just knock up a couple of churches, shall we? I counted them all. That's about 14 churches plus a massive big water tower also made of brick in an area of about 3/4 of a square mile's worth of radius. So if you took a compass and stretch it out 3/4 of a mile and went round in a circle, you would find yourself 14 roughly of these. Some cladded, some not. Some have got like Purbeck rock on them, or whatever they call them, Portland rock and all that, Portland cement and this, that and the other, different variations thereof. But at the end of the day, all that cement and stuff didn't start until the mid-1800s anyway, so it doesn't really matter what they call it. And before that they were using limestone, but the problem with that was, with the limestone, they were using that for everything, for steel and iron and all that, which is why they had to find something else. They had to. Again, it's something that you can look up in the official of our history books, and it will tell you in there. And if you just do a little bit, not even maths, you can work pretty quickly that it's all nonsense. But getting back to this, another thing that we noticed on a few of the churches that we looked at in the past was the coverings on the windows, and you have them here as well. Very odd. Yeah, let's cover 4/5 of it, but not the rest of it, shall we? Bizarre. And then we have here again, clear indicator. But that goes down, it has to. And then the add-ons that you see. Cladding. This is cladding, that is preformed. And again, this work couldn't have been done before the 1860s, 1870s. As Trinity 4 and myself were talking about when we were on the tour last week, we were saying that even if you factored in that cement and all that was available, it wouldn't have been widespread. You know, you don't invent something and then suddenly it's out there for everybody to use instantaneously. Just like your transport networks, your train systems and all that, you know, they're not up and running immediately. When you invent a train or such like, that takes a while before you can build it, have the manpower, train people up, blah, 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 blah. That can take a generation or two to get that up and running properly. So that is a little bit misleading when you say, oh, well, you know, they had brick factories in the 1880s or 1885. Well, yeah, the invention of. It doesn't mean to say everything was up and running and swinging by then. No, not at all. You know. And then, of course, you have interesting buildings like this. Take a look at this. Interesting. Cut a house in half. Maybe they needed the bricks. So this, I just find that really interesting that you have like two big brick structures like that in the immediate vicinity of each other in an area that never had a large population. So who the hell built it? How did they manufacture the bricks? How did they transport the bricks? For what purposes were these things built originally? You know, I've said this before as an example. If you look at footage of, let's say, I don't know, the chapel here. How you doing, all right?
Hey, you all right?
Yeah, good, thank you. If you look at a chapel, let's say, for example, in Port Stanley in the Falkland Islands, they have a population of a couple of thousand, I think. Don't quote me on that. You might want to maybe look that up. I can't right now because I'm doing this, but if someone wants to look at the population of the Falkland Islands and look at the church they have at their disposal, that is the kind of building you would build for a small population. Not buildings like this. You just wouldn't. Too much effort. Unless, of course, the building was something else and the effort was justified, or, of course, it was built by someone, something else that we know nothing about, hence it being hidden from our history. Because one thing's for sure, the ground coming up has definitely been hidden from our history. You know, they talk about the roads being lifted. I said this before now as well. Well, then explain how the ground has been lifted near village churches. No roads there. So, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of molded stuff, and the molded stuff would have been molded once that stuff was moldable. I know that sounds a little bit ludicrous what I said there, but you know, the technology had to be around for them to do that. And I think it's 1829, I think, was when this cement was patented in Leeds. I forget now off the top of my head the name of who it was, but it definitely was a father and son thing that went down there. But Aspden, William Aspden, I believe his name was. Yeah, so that's when cement was kicking in, 1824 to be precise. So 1824, you had cement being kind of patented. So let's just say you need another 10, 20 years to get that up and running in terms of mass production, so you could sell it in large quantities, etc. Well, you'd have to have your transport systems up and running for that to even work. That's why I believe everything happens in the beginning to the mid 1800s, because everything seems to be getting rolled out together in unison. You know, trains are invented, photography is invented, this is invented, that is invented. Everything seems to fall into line round about that age, that age, not age in that sense, but that era, you know, that time. And I'd like I've said before as well, including the education of kids. When did people learn to read and write? Well, that wasn't happening in the 1700s either. That all happened in the 1800s, late 1800s. So what I think was happening was that people were getting, or whoever the powers that shouldn't be are, were, you know, getting things lined up for when it coincides with literacy and schooling systems and all that. So that people are then eased into a narrative that makes sense and gets passed on seamlessly. So by the time you hit the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, yeah, you've messed around with your history books so much nobody would notice anyway. And not just messing around with history books, you can also come up with literature that make people think there were messiahs knocking about, walking on liquids. Well, that's another story. So there we have it. I wanted to just bring that to you because I thought that was interesting. I was going to do this a couple of weeks ago, but I thought I'd do it today. Elim, I should say, Church and Breath of Life Church. Very interesting. So I'll just continue to walk down this road and we can continue to chat if you don't mind. Another interesting fact that I found out earlier whilst doing a bit of research was that limestone, which is the predecessor to the cement, if you like, you know, the limestone formations contain 30% of the world's petroleum reservoirs. Interesting. So many reasons why they were in a hurry to roll out the new technology called cement, right? Because they also needed limestone for the production of steel and iron, which of course was key in cladding and decorating a lot of the buildings and then calling them Victorian builds, you know, like Crystal Palace and all that stuff. Well, how on earth do you knock up buildings like that when you're so limited in your resources or you're so limited in your technological know-how? It's just impossible. It's not even a debate. Problem is proving it. You know, so all you can do really, all you're left with really is to highlight the anomalies, you know, more than anything else. But there, you know, one church there, end of this street, and then, so you needed two churches here, did you, in 1870? Okay, interesting. Yeah. She's in. Yeah, I've got to be holding cameras in people's faces. Fascinating. While I'm talking about, or while I'm walking around here talking about buildings that we can't explain, I'd like to mention a flat earth meetup that's coming up this Tuesday at 1900 hours in a town called Swanage here on the south coast of England. So if anybody is interested and would like to attend that meetup, of course anybody locally, then do give me a shout, because I do want to go myself. I think I'm probably going to get a boat over there actually, because we have ferries or boat services that go from Bournemouth or Poole, so I might just get a boat over there. But yeah, there's a flat earth meetup coming up this Tuesday at 7 p.m. in Swanage, and you'll love the name of the pub that they're hosting it in. It's called the Globe Inn. So yeah, anybody who wants to go there, feel free. I shall be going there, most definitely. So I thought I'd make that announcement as well while I can remember. Yes. Oh, look what's happened to the sky suddenly. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that strange? Must stop being a conspiracy theorist, you know, pointing that out and then suddenly having that a few minutes later to back it up. That was clear about half an hour ago. Right, there we have it. Which place population was I talking about? How do you mean, Crystal? The population of this place, Boscombe, was maximum 800 back in 1870, according to their census here, their official listings. Which means that, you know, a population that small, well, you wouldn't have even been able to get the expertise, and if you did, you'd likely borrow them from a local village, and if you did that, then well, all work would stop in that village, and etc., you know. So that's if you meant that population. I don't know if you did mean that population. Which city was I needing the population on? Oh, not too sure what you mean there. Not too sure what you mean. But that's probably down to my goldfish memory. Right, I'm going to walk down this road. This road takes you to the football stadium where I used to work. The club is called AFC Bournemouth, and they are a Premier League football club. The Premier League being kind of the primary football league in the world, football as in soccer. When I say primary, I'm talking financially primary, because it's all measured in finances, isn't it? You know, success is measured in finances. Your standing in your family is measured on your financial situation, how well you've done at school, how well you're doing at work, how your promotions are getting on, your bank balance, your credit score, what car you can afford, your bling. See where I'm going with this? The poison chalice that everybody is encouraged to take a sip from. Some get hooked to the taste, others try and break free, others spend a lifetime trying to break free. Yeah, and others are quite happy where they are. And in this place that I'm approaching right now with the camera, the football club, there are plenty of people who are very happy where they are. You know, they don't want their cages rattled. They don't want people thinking, not even outside a box, but you know, offering to widen the parameters set by these clowns. Lovely day, not too hot. My half English, half German makeup is at work and just about survived this, because it was absolutely roasting a few days ago when we were doing the tour, especially in Nottingham when Adam Meakin came down to see us. It was so hot, so hot. Yes, we've all experienced hot weather, but when you're in a country that doesn't, you know, doesn't provide for those situations, like I don't have, you know, I said this yesterday actually, you know, I don't have you know, cooling systems built into my house, so when we do get a heat wave like that, you literally just got to hope it comes and goes as quickly as possible. There's nothing you can do about it, you know. Anyway, so here, look at the colour of the grass. It's like being in Spain. I remember driving through Spain a few years ago, and everywhere you looked, the grass had this sort of beige, burnt look to it, scalded almost. This road here is called Ashley Road. So we're going to go across this road, and let's see if I can get past these cars that have, of course, awkwardly come along just when I want to cross the road. Always the way. There we go. Whoops. Anybody seen this? See a lot of those as well. Animals that go missing. I don't want to start on that topic because that will lead me to another one. Yeah, so this is a nice kind of area. They often have big events on here. When I say big, things like circuses and that sort of stuff, fairgrounds, they'll have on here. And also this serves as a big cricket pitch. That is a cricket pavilion. Cricket, for those of you who don't know what it is kind of the forerunner to baseball, if you like. A game that consists of innings, and your idea is to get one team out, and then it's your turn to bat, and you have to beat their score. That's basically the principle. And you can get a player out in many ways, by hitting the stumps with the ball directly, by catching them, leg before wicket, all sorts of different ways you can get a player out. And this is where they'll play it here. Yes, grass that crunches when you walk on it. I know people who smoke it as well. So yeah, by the way, this is another nice place here as well. I used to pop in here on the way to work if I had work, let's say 11 in the morning or whatever, when I was at the football club. Come in here, have a quick breakfast and a cup of tea. In the English sense, cup of tea. So hot, with milk and a bit of sugar. The worst way on earth to drink tea, but we love it. Yeah. Then over there we have a indoor bowls club, carpet bowls, which is it's like the indoor version of curling, really. You know, just another version of it, or boule as they call it in France. Where you have to get close to the little ball in the middle called the jack, or hit it, or whatever. Very oldie England. But there you go, there's the cricket pavilion there. This is all part of Boscombe School there. And they've just recently built this for bicycles, which I find is a good thing because they don't do enough of that, which is kind of adapt the infrastructure for people using bikes rather than just making it road friendly or impossible for you if you're a pedestrian. Alright, I'm going to walk down here, and then when I get down to the bottom of this pathway I shall take a right, because it will take me round towards the neighbourhood where I live. But it will give you a rough idea of how close these big buildings are, because we're going to walk past another couple in a minute, and then you'll get more of a walking view of, you know, how far away they are from each other in times where you can get to them relatively easily because the infrastructure is up and running. Which of course again asks many questions of how people ever managed to, back in the day. I was saying this to Jason in a car as well when we were driving around from location to location on the tour. You know, him and I were talking about a lot of things obviously, and one of them was the old world buildings because I couldn't shut up about it. And you know, and I was saying, just imagine, and I think I mentioned this earlier in the stream as well, you know, people would have been so cut off from each other's communities that it would have been impossible. It just wouldn't have happened. You know, the amount of time it took us sometimes to get from A to B in a car. You know, getting around England is not very easy, even though this country allegedly is very small. So how on earth did they do it back then? I'd like to know. Anyway, there's the football ground. It's one of the smallest in the UK. It's certainly one, I think it is the smallest Premier League ground. Here's an interesting fact for you. This football club has 10,000, just over 10,000 attendants, and they've purposely, certainly last season, kept the attendance below 10,000 so they didn't have to check people's paperwork to see if they'd undergone certain procedures. Yet, although they did that, they still thought it was a good idea to not re-employ staff because they didn't get tested. Go figure. Doesn't get mentioned in the press or the media, of course, because they're all in it together, which is another thing I kept saying. We know that. They know we know that. We know they know we know that. But it's the others that we need to get to know that. And that's the thing. That's one of the reasons why we did the tour. because that's the only way you're going to get undiluted messages to people, is to literally talk to them, white to the eyes, go and meet them and talk to them, whether it's your shopkeeper, whether it's the guy filling up your car with gas or petrol, or whoever it is. You know, many ways to spread a message and drop a seed. Okay, so that is the Vitality Stadium behind me, and I'm now walking towards kind of my area where I live. So this is all Boscombe, by the way. You know, but a nice place. You know, the nice thing about this area where I live is you don't have to go too far to kind of experience a bit of greenery. And if you want a bit of town life, if you like, then you don't have to go that far either. And if you want your peace and quiet, you don't have to go that far either, you know. It is a beautiful area to walk in, most definitely. Yeah, very much a contradiction, Crystal. Yeah, absolutely. It's something I tried to highlight on a video a while back. You might remember the video, I think it was when Elim came down a few months ago now. But anyway, and I remember mentioning it there that, you know, it's such a contradiction. I even said it to the safety officer. You know, and even he, although he was uttering those words, it wasn't sinking into him how stupid the words were that he was uttering. And it's quite interesting because I listened to the Flat Earth debate show yesterday with Nathan Oakley and the chaps on there. And the main debate at the moment is whether it's stupidity, whether it's ignorance, whether they're doing it out of malice. You know, the people who are just arguing back and nonsensically arguing back. Well, the same goes for that as well. You know, are they doing it out of malice? Are they not realizing what they're saying? Are they unaware? Are they lying? Is it just pure cognitive dissonance? What is your take on cognitive dissonance? Is cognitive dissonance you maliciously lying, or is that just an effect of your cognitive dissonance, holding two positions simultaneously, right? Well, it's the same thing with that. That's why I always thought, right from the beginning when Jason and I were talking, that it was a great idea to approach various topics on this tour and not just have it as a flat earth tour. That was the reason. To try and kind of get them from different angles and see where they're at. Anyway, yes, you did, Tony. You did wipe the smoke off that drummer's face, and he deserved it because he was crap. Their brains have been washed. Crystal, you're absolutely right. By the way, Tony, I hope you don't mind that I made you moderator on here along with Tapper, but I needed a couple of decent fellas to do it, and no one else was around, so I thought I'd just add those moderator roles to you. So I hope you didn't mind me just doing that for you. But I thought, yeah, I need someone to watch me back a little bit when I'm doing this sort of thing, as we all do, you know what I mean? So I appreciate that. Anyway, right, so let's continue on down here. So you have the athletics track to the left there, behind those trees. And then over there you have a skater park, as it were, where the kids hang out. My daughter would love that. She loves anything like that. She loves skateboarding and stuff like that, and hanging out with, you know, trying different stuff. Yeah. She's in the Republic of Georgia at the moment, visiting her Georgian family. Yeah, they don't seem to have had many issues flying over the Ukraine to get there. Funny that. Anyway, so let's go up here. And there are one or two nice little buildings along here that have got bits of cladding as well, so it's well worth taking this little detour. It's not even a detour, because I think it's worth it all adds to the list of constructions, you know. So let's have a look at this one here. This is an NHS building, was used for or by the NHS. And here, of course, we have straight away evidence of lots of cladding. East Cemetery Lodge. Okay, Bournemouth Borough Council. But if we have a little close look, this building may not look much, but there is more to this site than you think, and I'll show you in a minute. But again, cladding very obvious. Here's what I pointed out last time with Dave. Get your thumb, rub against it, it breaks away. You are not making a building to last by building it out of that. Absolutely not. Wasn't happening. So they had to clad them over. I'm just a little bit wary not to be trespassing unnecessarily. Yeah. So cladding very clear to see. If we go around here, take a hanger left. Our kids round here, they're just idiots, some of them. So here we go. Here's another, there's a good example right there. So you've got the bottom of that pillar that's been lifted onto like concrete block, and you've got the curb that comes down from it. So it flattens out there. Of course, here it exposes that behind it. Right, so take that away. Let me have a look. Yeah, and they've got the asphalt that's come up to here. So they've just plonked it on and then let it go up to the cladding. That's what they've done. To give it the impression that that is going below a little bit, like it's the original. Of course it isn't. Okay, well, let's take a little walk inside and see what we have here. So this is the other side of that building that I looked at. Cladding galore. So we just come through the entrance of what essentially is a very, very large cemetery, which is another thing I'll be looking at soon, because of course cemeteries are very much connected with the buildings that we like to call churches today, that we've been repurposing as churches to uphold and maintain the control and division systems that are religions that are used to great effect to this very day. An example would be, for example, a member of our team on the tour being called an Islamophobe for not subscribing to any religion. That is the world we are living in today, upside down. Don't know who sung that song, but it's a cracker. Yeah, so here we go. Here's again another example of old but also cladding. I can't get in above there, there's the fence there. A little walk around here. Sorry about that if I cut out. But here's the interesting bit, and this is what I've been saying the whole time. Look at the bottom row of those large blocks. And then look beneath it. Yeah, bricks. See that? There's your bricks. There's your cladding. Bricks, cladding. Ground level, brought up. Fake building. Not fake building, but clad building. Right? That is what they've done. And of course, why would you then, would be the question, I suppose, clad something and brick it up at the same time? Sorry about that again. For some reason I keep cutting out. I don't know why, because I'm out in the open. Who knows? We have our theories, don't we, as to what's going on there. Right, so let's take a look at this building then. Moving on. Is this a newer construction? It looks like it, doesn't it, on first view? Right, Holly Tree Lodge. So let's take a closer look. Let's go around and have a look. See? Answer is I don't know. Let's see what we can find. Right. Right, a couple of dog walkers. They're looking at me thinking, what's that guy doing looking at buildings when he could buy himself a dog and have fun like us? Well, hate to say it, but a bit of a bore then, I guess, aren't I? Right, so let's have a look around here. I'm just going to try and see if we can get somewhere where I can look at it properly. Not really, there's fencing in the way, of course there is. But one thing I noticed straight away is they have this on the ground like they did a minute ago around the corner. It's almost like they brought that up to make it look neat and tidy for that bottom row of blocks that you can see there. Right, I would risk a suggestion by saying that if you took those blocks away and dug behind that, you would probably find red bricks underneath and beyond that. So you took this out here, pulled that back and went down, then below there you'll probably find red bricks. This has all been plastered over. That is definitely cladding, similar sort of cladding as we found around the corner there. No real difference. Difference slightly in the form, as in the shape in which they've picked to clad it. A bit more contemporary if you like, but apart from that, method no different. Right, and I've not actually been through this cemetery, so this is the first for me, but it's quite a large one. And I've not quite really worked it out in my mind yet, so I'm not going to kind of theorize about it on here. But, you know, I have mentioned in the past, real estate is exceedingly expensive, especially in England and especially in the south. That's all I'm going to say. You know. Right, I did see a spire of a building in the background, so let's walk round there and see what we find. Because that would then be church number 15 in this area. Oh dear, so you know. Hey Taps, How you doing, my friend? I'm just checking on the yeah, my multitasking skills are not very good. You know, when I do more than 2 things at once, you know, the world tends to end for somebody. Normally me. So, but yeah, cheers, mate. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning it. Cladding is an issue. Why? Okay. Cladding isn't an issue. Nobody's saying cladding is an issue. What we're saying is that if it's got cladding 1898 written on it, then how old do you think the building beneath it is? They're trying to bring a lot of these buildings forward in date so that we kind of buy the idea that the Victorians built it all, that they'd done them up, this, that and the other, when in actual fact, you know, that's not really the case, is it? We know we've been lied to on many other things, so, you know. And when people go, you know, when people are saying so what and all that sort of stuff, well, they just don't get it. And sometimes it's not worth wasting your energy trying to communicate that to people. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, right. So here's another building with cladding. Look at that. So you think anybody in their right mind will knock up a church like this amongst 14 other churches in a 3/4 of a mile radius, right? Plus a huge water tower that I did a video on called the Boscombe water tower. Where did they get all this material from? How did they transport it? Who did it? Who produced the materials in the first place? What expertise were you pulling your resources from? What population were you pulling those experts from in the first place? Right? Here, this one here would be enough to grace most large villages and small towns. Just this one here. Right. Now let's not beat about a bush. Let's get down to facts. I'm stood on tarmac, which means the ground has been raised. So let's see if the ground has come up. Let's give it a little litmus test. Let's walk over here and see if there is any evidence at all that there might be a layer or two below this build. Oh, look at it. Well, I never. Well, blow me down, knock me down, spin me round, swing me round. Looky on here. How remarkable is that? Strange that, isn't it? A retaining wall in the middle of a field, otherwise known as a cemetery, in the middle of a town where real estate is almost unaffordable, where we have unemployment rising, where we have people with no fixed abode going through the roof, excuse the pun, right? People on the streets. The only time we've ever had that problem sorted was when they got people cleared off the streets in lockdown and they were putting the homeless up in hostels and hotels. Apart from that, nope. So, with the real estate and everything else being as expensive as it is, and all the rest of it, yeah, we'll just keep it nice and spacious, shall we? Why not? Why not? And we'll lift the ground up here around this church as well. We don't just need to lift the roads up in inner city churches. Nah, we'll do it in cemeteries. I'll tell you what, let's lift the whole cemetery up so that we get this effect in this church here. Wasn't mud flooded at all. No. Bournemouth builders did all this. They lifted the whole complex up so that we get this effect next to this chapel here in the middle of a cemetery. No, that's not what happened at all. Something big happened. And this work here is after the event. This is after the fact. And the question is, what has taken place and when did it take place and who did all this? So, anyway, so you've got evidence there. And of course, you've got it all around here as well. This time the windows are actually fenced off as opposed to plasticed off, if you like. Interesting part of this building in a minute. And here's an interesting one. A mud scraper. They may have needed them back then, eh? They may have needed them back then. The blighters. So you have a lot of cladding, a lot of add-ons, touched up bits and bobs. There's a good example right there. Look at that. Really? Right, okay, so let's take a look back at this. So we have the bell tower, the steeple or spire, right? The vents that we're talking about as well. What the purpose of the vents? Is that to alter the frequency, to do something with the sound? Whatever sound was pumped out of these things. Bells today might have been something else back in the day, who knows? Yeah. Interesting. And we'll just go around the other side of this church. So although they've tried their best to kind of level it out and nothing to see here kind of thing, in actual fact there is plenty to see here, because that's far too low down for a kickoff. People were not malnourished in the day, by the way, and that's why the entrances were small, because then how do you explain a huge cathedral entrances? That's nonsense as well. Again, more BS from the powers that shouldn't be, and whoever writes the the curriculum for the schools, be they in America, Britain, or anywhere else in the world for that matter. Right. This is a big old building, and yet it's a cemetery chapel. Quite remarkable. But of course you can't get away from the fact that goes deep in the ground, and even if you weren't to see that, all you would do is you would spin your camera around and you'd see things like that, which give it away anyway. Drainage. So there we have it. A chapel that I've not looked up closely yet since I've lived here. I've lived here 7 years. But I have looked up now. And it's the same spiel. The same concealing. The same cladding type thing going on. The same rock being used. You know, Portland, Purbeck rock, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, quite interesting. So I'm going to go around this way. I'm not too sure if I can even get out here. So we'll give it a go. So please do bear with me. But there we have it. There's the church there. Quite an impressive building, I have to say. I want to get a close-up of the coat of arms, actually, while I'm at it. Appears to be like a tree of life of some sort at the top of it. Pine tree, almost. Excuse me for going off the stream again for some reason. I'll go back round. Sorry, Tony, I didn't see that. So you want me to go back round to the basement and see if the steps were made after? Right. Yeah, as soon as it gets a bit juicy, buffering starts. Funny that, isn't it? Must be all those satellites. Steps look ancient, right? You know, if you go to these ruins on the sides of mountains and stuff, you find all these concrete steps that have almost got indents in them, if you like, because they've been there so long, right? So this cladding they've put down here, of course, in the bits that you can see here, right and left, these are concrete slab, but this bit here I think is quite interesting because which means it must go further deep. So you have concrete, so that will go back another at least, and that is based on the experience that we've had of live streaming around Bournemouth when we did the hidden history. I bet he's not too bothered. He's just after a bit of scran, which for our American friends means food in certain regions of England. Right. An interesting building. Yeah, Elon probably has his fingers in many pork pies, which is Cockney rhyming slang for lies. I thought that was pretty good, that, even for my standards. Right, so let's have a little walk around here. I'm just going to take a little walk through the cemetery, or Friedhof, as they call it in German. Frieden means to be at peace, or peace. And Hof is like a courtyard. So it's a courtyard of peace, is what the Germans would call a cemetery. There you go. A little bit of German there, just to kill the time as we walk along and look at the literally hundreds, if not thousands, of gravestones to the right and to the left. So let's see where this takes me. Yes, Boscombe has quite an interesting background because it's connected directly with Mary and Percy Shelley, who were responsible, amongst other things, for the writing of Frankenstein, which, yeah, if you talk about symbology, or if you talk about books with meanings, let's say, metaphors and all that sort of stuff, then that's definitely one of those one of those books. But anyway, getting back to the Shelleys, allegedly they left a lot of money behind for the area to then do with what they will, and that allegedly explains why we have so many magnificent buildings in and around the Boscombe area. That is the official narrative. Yeah, no prizes for guessing whether or not you think I believe that narrative. The answer would be a big fat no. But yeah. Right, so we can get out here. I've just noticed the gate is open. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take a left here. And we'll see where this takes me. Temperature is dropping slightly, but it's nice though. Oh, I can't go out that way, so I'm going to have to go this way. Let's see. I've never walked along this road before, so this is the first for me as well. I have no idea where this is going to take me. I have a feeling it might well take me out the back towards where the church, the Corpus Christi church is. Or beyond that even. Let's have a look. I just hope I can get round to the main road. Yeah, so, you know, getting back to the church. So you'll find that in all village churches throughout the country, you know, it doesn't matter what village you go to. You know, so you'll always find evidence of what we call mud flood. I mean, we might have to figure out a different word for that. I don't know, but it is essentially a massive movement of ground, or what has become our ground, either from above or below, or maybe even from the side. Who knows? We don't know because it's been hidden from us, you know. But anywhere where you see things like retaining walls, and you see work has been done and cladding is going deep into the ground with a good couple of meters to spare between yourself and the wall that's been clad, then you know they've put the work in there. They pulled the ground back from the building to make it look like that, and to of course make use of those below level spaces. That's how they would have done that. And that might well have been possible to do that sort of work. Yeah, I'm not disputing that at all. You know. But there are plenty of anomalies. And that is the sheer volume of buildings that there are around compared with the populations that were around back then. Don't forget, the world population, according to the official sources, was 1 billion in 1900. it has since allegedly supernovaed to nearly 8,122 years later. So my question, in a couple of parts really, would be, what were the human race doing all those tens of thousands of years before somebody one day woke up and said, let's invent some steam power? Right? If anybody believes that narrative, they might want to go and have a little think. Maybe a lie down. Maybe even have some vitamins. I don't know. Treat your body well. But peruse the notion that that could be lunacy, and it could just simply be somebody fudging the history books, which is exactly what I contest is going on, you know. And I don't think we really have much history, actual real history, that goes much before the 1800s. The dogs agree with me. So there is too much evidence to suggest that before that point on, nothing really was happening. And so, of course, you have to then get rid of a lot of it, especially in countries like North America and Australia, all those countries that were allegedly founded by us Brits because we bumped into them on our wooden boats. Having used celestial navigation, of course, which only works from a flat baseline and not a curved surface that they call ball Earth. I just thought I'd add that one in there. So we celestially navigated ourselves around a flat Earth, found all these continents, started off all these populations, whilst invading more countries, whilst building all these massive buildings. Infrastructures were being put in place, schooling systems, militaries, financial services, economic structures, medical infrastructures, education systems, you name it. You name it. That all happened from the 1800s, and yet the thousands of years before that, we were doing nothing but goofing off, plucking potatoes. Do you really believe that? I don't. So what happened is the big question. Right, now, I have no idea where I am, so I'm going to see. I think I do actually know where I am. I'm quite surprised I've walked this far down. Yes, okay, now I know where I am. This is the entrance to Southbourne. And look at this, when we mix the old with the new, what do we have on the left there? A beautiful, nice new 5G tower. Yay! Don't we all love it? Across the road before I get run over by a big yellow bus. Hope you can hear me, it's a bit windy. So apologise if the wind is taking away what I'm saying. Then again, that might not be a bad thing. There you go, nothing to see here. Just part of everyday life, innit? Yeah, why complain about stuff like that, eh? Why even mention it? Everyone else is getting on with their lives. Why are you kicking up a fuss about it? What's the big deal, mate? I had that said to me a few times on the tour as well. So what? Who cares? Got enough to worry about. Well, yeah, we have got enough to worry about. In fact, if you use your brain a little bit more, you'd be worrying about the right things, not about the stuff that ain't worth worrying about. That's good. That's a good thing about walking around holding a camera like this or a phone like this. I can get away with talking to myself. Anyway, right, so we're now in Southbourne. So there you go. I didn't really intend on doing that, but doesn't matter because Southbourne is interesting as well. And what I'll do is I'll finish it by walking just around here, just so that, again, like I said, you get an impression or an idea as to how close these particular buildings are. This side of Boscombe, you know, again, look at that, roads going down, all the way down. That goes all the way to Christchurch in that direction. Ooh, fish and chip shop. I might stop in for fish and chips in a bit as well on the way back. Catfish, only 75p. Old age pensioners, fish and chips. Cod and chips, £7.50. So pensioners have to pay £7.50 for their fish and chips. Scandalous. Scandalous. So, South Bourne, the River Bourne, Bournemouth, that's the connection with that word. And of course, straight away, you see clad buildings like the one on the right, with 1907 written on the plaque, on the gable, on the front. So let me just zoom into that, and then you'll see what I mean. So that is what I'm talking about there. When they have that, oops, excuse my finger. That is the date of the cladding, not the date of the whole building. Shouldn't get too confused. And if you walk around here, on first glance you might think, nothing really much going on there. Well, first of all, you can see the difference in colours of the bricks from the cladding to the bits below it. But also quite interesting is, I can't remember if it's this side or the other side. It might have been the other side. Yeah, it's the other side. I'll show you. Here is the evidence right here. There we go. So normally your classic prism lights would be your blocks of glass placed in the path to then allow light in to a basement window that's below the surface. But of course people walk over these every day and don't give them any thought. Why would you build basements with windows in them? So yeah, you'll find that in a lot of areas. Right. Okay, and I'm going to go down to the trying to keep the camera away from people when they're walking around. I don't want some guy walking around filming them. Right, yeah, across the road there is the library, and I went there a few weeks ago. And once the chief librarian, I guess she was, started overhearing my conversation I was having with the lady at the desk, she sort of rushed out of her little office and was telling me all about when the library was built and this, that, and the other. Yeah, she didn't like me questioning what I was questioning and telling her about, well, you know, when the brick factories were made, oh, well, no, they got all their bricks for this building from Weymouth. Well, really, Weymouth? Well, Weymouth is miles down the coast. I mean, it's like, it takes you about half an hour to get there on a train from here. So if they were getting their stuff from Weymouth to build this here, the building that's on your left, right, the public library, well, how on earth did they get it all? You see what I mean? When people say things, make statements, and don't realise how stupid what they've just said actually is. You know? It's just absolutely mental. So it's not us really being pedantic, it's just glaringly obvious anomalies. So here we go, this is the library. And again, cladding galore, coming away from it. See, if you can look in there, brickwork behind it. Right, even there, you know, I mean, they've done double over there. They've put this, which is, you know, look at that. You weren't building buildings with that. Wasn't happening. Come around the side, and then you can see it's all uneven. If I go down on ground level a little bit, you can see there how uneven that is. Ground level as opposed to ground curve. And then of course you have the same old thing going on with the windows and the pre-molded concrete, cement, whatever you want to call it, probably from the 1860s, 1870s, maybe even later, but no earlier than that, that's for sure. I say for sure, may have been earlier than that, but then again, we would have had to have been lied to, and they wouldn't do that to us, surely. Concrete slabs and got rid of that there, then you would find those bricks below that ground going deep down. Alright, so we'll continue down here because there is a little piece that I'd like to show you before, I was going to say before I round up, but actually I might not. I might just walk all the way home and keep you with me, if you don't mind. So let's go down here and I'll show you this building here. And again, you look at the building and you think, well, what was the purpose of that there? Why would you put that there? You know. So let's have a look to see exactly what the hell I'm talking about. So we're still in Southbourne. Not a bad part of the world.
Oh, Daisy, what?
People sat out having a drink, bite to eat, cooling down from the last few brutal days of weather that we had. I did take some footage from within Jason's car, actually, speaking of the weather, where we got caught in some torrential rain on the way back from Leeds. So bad that we almost had to stop the car. We literally couldn't see, it was such bad rain. Yeah, nothing to see here, of course, nothing to question, just the way it is. Right, so take a look at this little beauty here. Always fascinated me, this bit, so we'll have a look at it. Have a look at this. Look at that. I get a better angle. I might get him run over. Right, so this is actually on the picture for Southbourne when you enter the village or the town. It has this on their sign. Look at that beauty. What a beautiful building that is, eh? Quite amazing. Been turned into a pub, brew house and kitchen. There you go. I wanted to bring that to you because I thought that was a fascinating building. Hi Smurfer girl, by the way, I didn't see you there. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody that's come in today to accompany me. Mickey, great to see you, mate. Haven't spoken for a little while. I hope things are fine with you guys. Nice to catch up with a few familiar faces, of course. So yeah, look at that. I mean, that's just all one big building. When you take away all the bullshit that we're seeing, probably get taken down now for that swear word, eh? You know, you're left with kind of a building that looks like, sorry, no worries. Yeah, they're on scooters. But I might get a scooter myself to go back, or I might just walk back. Yeah, but they clad it up, or they add bits to it. Like we've got a couple where we have like the lower level, for example, where my finger is. They would have like a, I don't know, like a shop there. Then they'd have a newsagent there. Then they'd have a betting shop there, and they'd have a pub on the corner there, right? So you'd have your row of shops. And you see a lot of those features in the UK, most certainly. You might see it in America as well, and other countries, but it's something worth looking out for, that the buildings will have like layering where the top half of it might still look old, but the bottom half will be used for something else. And you'll have plenty of different sorts of cladding on it, to give you the impression that it's been a building that's kind of evolved with time, and it's been hodgepodge, built at different times and all that. Which of course it may have been, but not the way they're telling us, right? But yeah, I just find that very, very fascinating. In fact, while we're at it, this is what happens. See, I can't then stop when I start. So I'm going to cross the road and I'll show you something else. 1 second. Right, now look at that, right? So there's the building there. Look how big that is. Look how big that building is. Right? Now you have to presume that there's another layer of that goes below the ground. Why am I saying that? With such certainty and conviction? Well, follow me and I'll show you. And then we'll get round to the other building I was going to show you. So we start here. Check out the ground level there. Okay, now let's walk down here. Level-ish. Of course, it's not really. Then you've got the cladding here on the front, or on the side, or on the back, whichever way round. No idea. Then you have where it starts getting interesting. Okay, so there's your ground, there's your road there that I just walked down from. And we come down here, and suddenly brickwork starts showing itself. Look at that. There you go. So there's your level there. If I got my finger there, there's your level there. Sorry, there. Right? There's your level there. And if we do this all the way along, that is what you're seeing that eventually joins there. So that bit there where my finger is the beginning of another level. Is where the brickwork starts here. Yes, they've ramped it up there. The ramp goes up, but of course the main road goes down. You can see it here along the wall, right? So clearly there is some below the ground action going on there, if you want to call it that. And if we swing around and take it from a different angle, then of course I'm going down below that level now. It's kind of almost hitting the top of my head, if you like. And the sides of the building continues around the back. It was just phenomenal. A pub. Quite incredible. Yep. So what I do is I'm just sort of showing you is I don't have the answers to what's going on here, what went on, who built what, when, why, how, and all the rest of it. But what I can do is I can point it out and go, well, what do you think of that? I can only draw the conclusions that I can draw, and I can read up on some of the mainstream stuff and establish certain key milestones in the history books. For example, you know, the mass production of bricks, not the making of bricks. Nobody has ever said, just to clarify this, right, once and for all, nobody said bricks didn't exist before 1885. What I said was 1885 is the year, according to the history books, that the mass production of bricks started taking place. Factories were built to basically cope with the demand of bricks, right? So you weren't making them on site if they were massive big buildings. You can't have, because you wouldn't have had the space, etc., etc. I'm not going to go down all the arguments, but there are a plethora of arguments that make that a nonsensical notion. That's the way it was done. But it's that conflict that people have with, well, the history books tell us this, so why would they lie? So I think I'll just go with them, even though your eyes are telling you something totally different. You know, where have we heard that before? Indeed. I'm not even going to verbalize it. Right, next building. This is what I meant by when they create shops and stuff down on the ground surface to make it look like it's been hodgepodge together over time. Well, here's a good example of what I meant. So if you ignore the shops on the ground level, just imagine they're not there, you kind of see that this is pretty much one and the same building. Certainly up until gable number 5. So we're starting on the corner here on the right, and then we're walking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is attached. Doesn't have the gable features on the top. I think what they've done is they've clad them differently to make them look a bit different, so not to realise that this actually was right from the start all one big building. So let me go around the front to address what Smurfer was just mentioning or asking, which is that a face? I'll give you the answer to that once I turn around. So I'll come back and then I'll zoom in. There you go. That is what's on the front of the building. I'd have to take a real look at that image. I'd have to screenshot it and take a closer look. Yeah, something like that, like a green man. The color green again. I was talking about that yesterday with Crystal, actually, about the significance of green in a lot of what we're seeing recently. Not just the Queen's dress that she wore on the Jubilee, but also the fact that, you know, you mix blue and yellow together and you get green, for example, and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, yeah, that's another rabbit hole, isn't it? But I'll just try and get over the road again, so we've got another angle from the other side. And then you can see it clearly. So, yeah. One big building, I think, as far as I'm concerned, with a lot of cladding on it. And of course, evidence of mud flood. Well, basically because you can see the drainage systems right down the front. You can see there are outlines of where they used to have the prism lighting. So here, for example, if you go around here with your finger, right, that outline there. A lot in front of a lot of these buildings. Yeah, so there we have it, and this is called Julian Terrace. There we go. So I thought I would just bring that to you because I felt that was quite interesting. I could have gone further into Southbourne, but then the further I go in, the further I have to walk back. I know that sounds like the logic of a very lazy man, and you'd be right. Ah, Mickey, you have one at 7 tonight about churches, do you? Well, and Smurfer, you were asking me about, you wonder if the shop owners go down there. Do you mean go down, or as in go down to their basements and stuff? Just out of interest, because, you know, like I said earlier, we were talking to people in like cities like Bath, for example, where we're told the Romans built it all, right? Just imagine a scenario. Just imagine a scenario whereby you get together an army of 10,000 men. They wouldn't have all had horses, by the way. You have them kitted out from the army, you know, to fight or whatever. But not only are you sending them around to fight, but also they've got to knock up all these buildings and baths and roads and temples and aqueducts and viaducts and this, that and the other. Are you crazy? You've got to be nuts to think that that is even what happened. But what happened was, in Bath, we did speak to a few people, especially we had one conversation with a guy who lived in the basement building, and he was saying that they have problems all the time with things like moisture in the winter time, or the autumn time, the winter time, because of course his flat and basement flats weren't meant to be underground in the first place, obviously. And I remember Trinity 4 asking somebody when we went into a shop in Bournemouth, you know, ever been down your basement? And the guy said, oh, we haven't got a basement. And me and Dave looked at each other going, ah, interesting. Of course he has a basement, he just doesn't know it. Right? So, yeah. Windows that are 12 feet tall, indeed. So when I remember talking to somebody from the Water Tower, which is the big brick building here in Boscombe, and I asked them what his flat looked like, and he said, well, he doesn't have basements either. And I could see through one of the windows, you know, the interior design is done in such a way that you can't even see the shape of the original building from within. So it's impossible to kind of, you know, get a gauge and a handle on that, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah. And of course down this street, one of these streets, was that All Saints, I think it was called, the big church that I took a look at a little while back. But anyway, there we go. So I thought I'd bring that to you because yeah, one thing led to another, darling. And that was that. Some people never stop. Interesting stuff. I shall go a different way. I'll go this way because it's quieter. And also I can have myself a little drink, a refreshment, and not have to worry about not only multitasking, but not getting run over in the process of multitasking. So little buildings like this here. Harcourt Hall. Interesting. Anything to do with hall or temple, and my ears prick up for obvious reasons. Anyway, we'll continue to walk down here once I figured out where my sunglasses are. Right, got them. Yes, if I had a bag of chips, fish and chips on me now, those herring gulls that you hear in the background would be swooping right down on me. That would be worth tuning in for, just that. Sven's battle with the local gulls. Yeah. Okay, now we've got buildings like this here. This is called the Bournemouth Deaf Centre, for example. Centre for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. But again, look at the resemblance. How many buildings have you seen me show you today that look like this? One is a library, one is a church, one is a centre for the deaf and hard of hearing, deaf and hard of hearing. You know, it's just repurposed. They're all been repurposed. That's it. They've been clad and repurposed. That is it. I've no need to go close up to this building. It'll be the same spiel. Same thing. Different label on it. So if I was to add those buildings into the list of what I would call churches and the like in the Boscombe area, then we're talking 16, 17 now already of them. You know, and it might be pointing out the obvious to a lot of people, and I'm sure it is, and I'm sure to some respect I'm kind of preaching to the choir because you guys kind of know you've got a handle on it. But, you know, it's what I said to my daughter. That's why I try and get her to look in on my channel every now and then, you know, and I'm aware of that because hopefully she'll get friends of hers to take a look as well. It might give them a little bit of a, you know, a nudge to perhaps approach certain topics a little bit differently It's the age, isn't it? They're 12. Well, my daughter's 12 years of age. This is a critical time in her life where I have to get the balance right with her being flooded with all the nonsense, but also me offering her some sound alternatives to think about. How do I do that? Where do I, how do you start that process? It's all about the timing, I guess, isn't it? And all that. But, like I said a few days ago, if only I'd known all this when I was in my 20s. Yeah, we all had an idea that something wasn't quite right. But I guess that's how the powers that shouldn't be do it. They know they get a certain time with you, a certain longevity that they can work with. And then by the time you've kind of sussed it yourself, they're already on to the next generation, lined up, ready to be indoctrinated and utilised and chewed up and spat out. A bit dramatic, but it's the way it is. It's the way I see it anyway. Very tempting to have a sit down there now and have a smoke, but I'm not going to. Because I haven't got any cigarettes on me. Oh dear. Anyway. Ooh, nice colour. Look at that. Only they did that to more houses here in Bournemouth. Be a much nicer place. On the eye, I promise I'll get out of here at some point. And there we have that building again in the background that I did a video on a little while back, where the security guard came out and asked me what I was filming, even though I was filming from the vantage point of a public pathway. I was stood on a public pathway. But yet he decided to get funny because he was wearing one of his luminous armbands to show off his biceps and triceps. Didn't really work on me. Probably works on others, but... Yeah, and then you have your local sort of buildings like this. This is how you would kind of build your brick buildings, Very simple. That's the way you would do it. In a time when you would have had streets, you would have had electricity, you would have had your transport systems and your logistics in place to be able to cope with the demand and get the stuff around. I think this is a close, so I might have to go around this way. It doesn't matter, I'll turn right and go here. Turn right a little bit too soon. It's about fake churches, is it, Mickey? All right, Smurford, well, you enjoy your garden. Thank you for checking in. I really appreciate that. It's very kind of you, very nice of you. See you about again soon, no doubt. For it's a small world. Take care. Yeah, so I'm going to turn right here because I went the wrong way. See? Multitasking. Told you I'm no good at it. I will have a good walk. As long as it has an end destination to it, I'll be all right. Right, let's go down here. Now this is the bit, this is the bit that I kind of looked at last week. No, not last week, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, actually. This takes you around the back of Corpus Christi Church. Remember that video that I did a little while back where we had Trinity 4 on a podcast. This was about 3 months ago, something like that. And we were talking about the add-ons and what they did to, let's say, churchify the building, if you like. you know, a bit like Robert Simmons or whatever his name is, you know, the cartoonist for NASA, who openly states that he provided an image of the Earth that he thought would fall in line with people's perceptions of it. I mean, just think about that for a moment. If that's not mockery, I don't know what is, you know. But yeah, so that's what we're talking about. So they did the same with churches. We'll add a gable here, and we'll add a little add-on here, and an add-on there, and then that way it will look more like a church. Or we'll construct or add on to an already existing building, a la Liverpool Cathedral, which I think is what's happened there, and pretend we've built it new. But we'll build it in such a way that that way we compound the idea and the notion that these buildings were always built like that and always built for those purposes. Right? Nonsense. But, you know, who's going to question your authorities when you have heavy-handed chaplains running your schools and you get the cane for picking your nose back in the day 100 years ago? So no kids were ever going to question any of that. And by the time they get around to our generations, where we have the internet and this, that, and the other, well, it's already too late because, you know, the magic trick, the magic spells have already been cast. So we're trying to unspell everything, aren't we? We're trying to get through to people. We're trying to make sense of it ourselves and all the rest of it. And sometimes you feel like you just haven't got the time to do it. You're running out of time to do it, to do any of that properly. There we go. So that's what I was talking about. This was AECC University College, a clinic. So I called the video clinic, church, school, take your pick, because that's what they do. They repurpose these things. And in the background, you have that church there called Corpus Christi, right? Brickwork, and behind the cladding, brickwork. Massive, massive building. I'm just going to show you quickly. I'm not going to go on here now. I've already done a video on it. You can see it, but I'll just give you just a quick kind of view. There's the side of it. And there, you know, you've seen pictures like this before. Asylums, orphanages, colleges, Trinity College, that sort of stuff, right? Very Cambridge, very Oxford, very whatever, right? And then of course you've got the small matter of a massive church in the background, right? You know, it's crazy. How'd you build all this stuff in this area? Madness to believe that. And there we have it. There is the Corpus Christi church in the background in all its glory. A beauty. An absolute beauty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk past that church and I'm going to then go into a fish and chip shop and order myself fish and chips, because I am Hank Marvin, which means starving, for those who don't know. Yeah, he was a guitar player in the Shadows, in case anybody was wondering. Remember Cliff Richard? By the way, look him up. Interesting. Yeah, so here we go. This is the Corpus Christi church that we did a video on and really kind of went in depth. But you know, if you look at the size of it. So brick manufacturing started in 1885. This was built in they tell us 1860, something like that. Impossible, of course. So we have to ask ourselves, who did it? How was it done? When was it done? Why was it done? Because you also have, of course, the evidence of mud flood. Right there. Look at this. There you go. Anyway. And then you have your add-ons on the side to give it more credence and validity. So this is the Corpus Christi church. literally about 300 yards away from the top of the cliff. That way, the way the camera's pointing is the ocean. And add-ons down the side there. And all the rest of it. Add-ons, add-ons, add-ons. And of course, you've got the vents at the top there as well that we talked about. What were the vents used for? Was it to cool some sort of power system that was used in these towers? The octagonal shaped towers, round / octagonal. What was going on there? You know? The rest of it serves for illusion purposes. That there is for me the key bit. What is going on there? Anyway, there we go. I'm not going to harp on that building because we've kind of looked at that before. But yeah, most interesting indeed. Corpus Christi, yeah, it's a name that's been bandied around a lot. You know, body of Christ obviously is what it means, but it's what the Catholic Church say to you when they offer you bread. You know, when you're taking your communion. But yeah, and then you have this thing here. I have no idea what this is, by the way. God knows. Right, so there we have it. I thought I would bring that to you. I thought I'd go for a little walk. It ended up nearly 2 hours, which is nice. And like I say, I don't have the answers to any of this, but I certainly have observational skills that I can put to good use. And then through those, you know, maybe ask a few questions and point out something that might have an idea and go, hang on a minute, you know, I work in a building trade, for example. I don't, but let's say if someone else does, and this is what we would do, or this is what we would do, or that doesn't add up. And thus you get your expertise together, don't you? And you can start formulating a hypothesis and come up with some, you know, real ideas and theories and all the rest of it. Well, not even theories. There we are. So we're back onto Old Christchurch Road. This goes on for miles in this direction into the town centre of Bournemouth, and then it goes back from behind me into Christchurch. To the left we have Woodland Walk with, again, our coat of arms. That's the coat of arms that I zoomed in on earlier. The blue and yellow, if you notice the colours. I thought you might have. What does blue and yellow give when you mix them together? Correctamundo. Anyway, that's a nice little walk that is. So if you're ever down this part of the world, have a little walk down Woodland Walk. Takes you straight to the top of a cliff, or top of cliffs. You've got a beautiful view of the English Channel and all that. So there we have it. And here we are in sort of the almost the centre of Boscombe. And while we're at it, I'll just show you the large buildings. So there's that one there as well. Look at this. Again, ignore the buildings on ground level. Just look at above the shops, right? Above the shops. So again, you've got this bit here, flower shop, pawn shop, letting agent, hairdresser, and a Thai restaurant. But of course, all that there above is one building, as you can clearly see. and it goes all the way to the back there as well. If that wasn't enough, you get the same on the other side as well. It goes all the way to there, with these lower buildings here. Well, part of that building, but just facading and all that, but more so. There we have it. Interesting, isn't it? And yeah, and when we talk about the hexagonal or octagonal shaped towers that you find on the corners of buildings, or like on Corpus Christi, for example, where I was talking about the vents in the side of the wall, well, here we have another example of it here. Across the road to our left, above the vape shop, you'll see a similar thing. So I'll show you. That you see a lot. Now, have they taken the Antiquitech off the top? Perhaps, but it's the shape of it that intrigues me, and it's what you'll see on a lot of the buildings. Whatever they've done with cladding, facading and all the rest of it, whatnot, okay, we can talk about that and speculate, but the shape itself remains, doesn't it? What would be the point of building things like that today? You just wouldn't. It would be too many windows, it would be too much messing around. You just wouldn't do it like that. Right. So there we go. All right. Okay, and then the last one I'm going to do with you is, because I wanted to do this for a long time, and I was going to do a separate video on it, but I'll do it now as a little taster, and I am going to do my next building, as it were, video. But I'll show you now, just so you can see what I'm on about. It's a building that's been making me think for a while now what on earth this may have been at one time. So if you take a look to the left, you'll see a bus stop. Then you'll see to the right of that bus stop the Royal Boscombe supermarket, and that building there where that supermarket is, look at the length of it. Look at the length of that building. That is all one building. So, like I said before, you have these shops here that go all the way down to the corner there. There's the end of the road there. But then look at all that above my finger. Right? Quite unbelievable. What on earth was that? It's only since these lot got in, they maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago, whenever they turn these into shops here, that they put these here. Right? But at the end of the day, that there is all one big construction. With cladding, of course. Of course, they had to do that. You can see that with the depths of the windows, how they go into the wall and everything else. But what was it? You know, and look at this bit here. Oops. Absolutely crazy. And there are people who stand on that roof in the evenings because I see them from my house. So it could well be, you might be right, it could well be a factory of some sort. A factory for what though? And this is the thing, right? So when you're looking at the buildings like, for example, Crystal Palace, right, of which we now know there were definitely 2 in Hyde Park and Sydenham Hill, right? Well, maybe all these different structures were producing different things. So whatever required glass buildings with metal girdering or whatever, then their job may have been to manufacture one particular thing. And maybe buildings built like this were made to, I don't know, to cater for the production of something else. Who knows? And we could really go into sinister elements there, couldn't we? But yeah, this is quite a building, this, and I want to take a closer look at this one at some point in a video. I said it will be my next buildings video. I can't totally guarantee that. It might not be. It depends how busy this road is. But it'd be something I would definitely want to look at. Got to go to Southbourne. But yeah, because it is a fascinating building, you know, quite amazing. And of course it's got the roses again, and it's got the play on the pillars that you see there. So you have the roses there, rose and rose there. Interesting. Anyway, so I will leave that now for the moment. I thought I'd just bring that to you. That ended up much longer than what I intended. I thought I was only going to do about an hour or so. I hope I wasn't cutting out too much when it was windy earlier. And if I was, then, well, what can I do? But I thank you all very, very much for tuning in and accompanying me for the last couple of hours. Everybody, thank you, Crystal, for hanging out with me here as well, and everybody else as well. I will change your settings so that you got wrench for next time, just so that you know. And then there'll be 3 of you. Then that way, I'll feel like I'm more than sufficiently covered by some decent people. Yeah. So really, I just wanted to bring that to you. I felt like doing it, and there are plenty more of these kind of buildings around here as well, and there'll be similar storylines. And again, it just adds more to that argument about, well, you know, the books, they're lying, or whoever wrote them, of course, are lying. Why are they doing so? That's the big question, isn't it? But anyway, on that note, I bid you all farewell. I hope you all have an enjoyable rest of your Sunday. Tapper, thank you, mate. A pleasure. You know, we'll talk soon. I will probably start going live more now rather than recording and putting them up. So do watch out for other videos coming up next week. Tapper, I'll probably let you and Tony and Crystal know beforehand if I'm going to go live so that you guys can be there. We'll try and keep it as synchronized and as professional as possible. You know, I'm still learning. It's early days for me, like, so I'll get there in the end. But yeah, at least I know I've got a few good people that I can rely on and stuff. So that's a good help. So next time I will message you ahead and or whatever, and then we can take it from there. But anyway, so on that note, for the 3rd time, I will see you all soon, some of it sooner. Bye bye, take care, and ta-ta for now.